Hi everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about the Encyclopedia of the Weird and Wonderful by Milo Rossi. Milo Rossi is more known from his channel name Mini Minuteman. He is the archaeology guy on YouTube. His channel is him inviting us to see the wonderful world of archaeology, where he either takes us to archaeological sites around the world and the amazing sight and history in those places, or having to debunk a lot of misinformation surrounding it, which is a lot. People that instead of having an educational dive into the subject either use common sense, critical thinking. I saw it online, and unfortunately this is not a joke. I saw it in the cartoon as evidence of whatever misinformation they have. I think it's a fun channel that you should definitely check out if you're interested in archaeology. Fair warning though about the whip and the snake often seen in the channel, occupational hazard. But we are not talking about his channel today. We're talking about Milo's book, The Encyclopedia of Weird and Wonderful. The book is filled with various fun facts and stories, some from what archaeology have gathered from various places on Earth, but represented in such a unique storytelling. The first step of the book starts with a literal footprint, a historical evidence dated to 23,000 BB, years before present, which is a dating system used to measure absolute age numbers that don't involve our currently used relative dating system. It then continues with hand-painted cave, writing on the walls, as if to paint us access to the history made from our limbs. The book then tells us about items that have a version of what looks like the same purpose now and back then: baby bottle, toys, action figures, our cultural relationship with foods, with animals, and how it gives us some of the most fun facts. Dog that has a royal burial, Tutankhamun obsession with dogs, lizard that becomes so famous because it revived itself, pigeon that got a military award, and even it goes into a lot of different parts of older society and culture like love, sexuality, fashion, and beauty standard, work, health, and how all of us grieve. We can see how much we have in common despite the distance of time we live in. These are highlighted more when the author also tells modern time stories that is closer to our era and our way of living. And if there's a difference, we can kind of trace back what makes those differences. It's a really interesting book with a lot of insight into our world. I think the opening of the first chapter captured what the book wanted to accomplish. Everyone's childhood is different, but the threads of curiosity and development are the same for all. From searching the crumbling board of a rotten log for pillbugs to delightfully smearing ketchup on the walls because you can. Children have always been curious about the world and learning how it works through trial and error. So, as you reminisce about that favorite childhood story, remember that you are the most recent chapter in a ceaseless human tradition of childhood wonder and discovery. And just like that quote, there is a childlike wonder and amazement that permeates through the books, just like how we view the world when we was a small child, when everything is so new and so much bigger than us. The author looks at these random facts that historically is so much older than most history that we know, and shows that we don't need to put any additional untrue facts to make them more interesting, because they already are interesting as it is. For example, the 25 gold figure mentioned in the book are actually just old figure for fish, birds, and insects. And the fact that people back then already cared to make art on nature is already interesting enough. There's no need to force it to become evidence of alien technology when it isn't like what the show Ancient Alien did. Especially when there are other figures with shapes like dogs, etc. that have no wings or fin attached to them that makes this theory become obsolete. The book does have a few flaws in the writing, not in the research. Some of the writing don't really connect that well from one section to another. A lot of the time they do feel like a collection of interesting facts that don't really connect that well. There is a hard cut in between chapters that can make reading it feel janky. As a result of this, some chapters just feel like they're just random trivia placed on the book to make them feel longer. This can be felt especially in chapter 2, Eat, Drink, and Be Merry, that talks about food. It went back and forth between various foods in different time and different place, with a lot of it coming from a more modern era. There's no linearity to the story here, so it really feels like random tidbits gathered from similar theme that is food. Also, it doesn't help that the book have one of my personal pet peeve on a non-fiction, which is where the glossary or a tangent was placed inside the chapter, interrupting the flow of the story. I don't mind footnotes like the ones on the bottom right because they're less intrusive, but glossary in the middle of the page is like having a pillar in the middle of your already small room. It's especially frustrating with this book because the glossary is so closely in topic with the story it cut off that it could easily be placed into the story as some kind of a fourth wall break during a non-fiction or just placed at the end of the chapter. It's at least not placed during mid. Hi guys, here's an example of how the glossary was used in the book sentence. But other than that, it's a wonderful book. Even if I describe some of them as random trivia or just fun fact, they do in fact are both fun and fact. Did you know that since ancient times people already played board games? One of them is called the Royal Game of Ur, and it has this really beautiful board that will eventually become backgammon. This board game is older than even chess. The book has a short section on how to play them, and it sounds like fun. Did you know ancient Egyptians also left a late forward notice to their boss? They just like me, for real, for real. We've even found a written bad review for a purchase. They really are just like us, for real, for real. There's even some knowledge on forgotten history on scientific discovery like Kitab al-Jadari wa al-Hasba from Abu Bakar Muhammad Zakaria al-Razi, or the book on smallpox and measles that will eventually help us understand more about virus and pandemic. Or how snake oil man at first was an actual snake oil from water snakes that helps because it contained a lot of omega acid. It's only after an American named Clark Stanley copied it and sold them in America without using any actual snake oil that snake oil man became a derogatory term used to describe scammers like Logan Paul and Dylan Dennis. I honestly had such a blast reading this book. I think it's easy to forget about how wonderful this spinning rock we're standing on, especially when there's so much fictional world that somehow compete with our world. And I don't think it's because our world are more boring compared to those worlds, but mostly because a lot of us just know more about the fictional world of Lord of the Rings, One Piece, or any other great fiction than the world we live in. In Indonesia we have a saying, tak kenal maka tak sayang, which roughly translates to do not know, then do not love. And by roughly translate, I mean Google Translate, so take it with a grain of salt. But whatever the translation is, what I'm trying to say is, how are we going to be interested in our world when our knowledge of it is less than our knowledge of fictionary world that we adore? How is Earth supposed to compete against Middle Earth when you know more about the history of the One Ring to rule them all than the planet you live in? And interest in our world has and will always be important for us to have some understanding in, especially since now any information, including bad misinformation, is easier to circulate more than ever. And I'm not trying to go boo-hoo, internet bad, no, nothing like that. Talking like the internet is solely at fault is not helpful, even when it took a big part on the circulation of bad information, because it has always been like this. Remember when educational channel on TV like Discovery Channel just make up stuff that's not real but package the show as if their true story to gain rating? Yeah, that happened multiple times even back then, and it has also happened before TV. It's just now everyone on the internet can make up shareable stuff to gain clout in a more global level. More than ever now, information, good information, becomes a solid defense for ourselves against misinformation. And books like this that have a ton of source material you can look into has been and will always be a great source of reading. It helps that it is packaged in such an interesting read. It had its flaw, but it's definitely still worth a read. I give this a 3.75. What do you think? Are you gonna read it? Did I miss anything? Leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it.